Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deckin Around Deck Specs. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Sovereign playing cards from Jody Eklund. But before we jump into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And ring the bell, please.
So this deck is part of an unspecified print run printed by USPCC on their standard stock, and there are actually 3 additions to this deck. There are the 2 standard colors, which are the teal and the maroon that you see in the image here, and then there's a 3rd limited edition, which is a Metalux back with a white tuck and a different tuck design as well. The 2 standard editions retail for $18, and then the white edition retails for $25. Let's check it out. So I have to say, the one thing that really stood out to me about this deck is that the renders versus the final product were, I don't want to say distinctly different, but they were pretty different in ways that I think actually negatively impacted the final copy. You'll notice how tough it is to actually see the name on the deck. And a part of that is because if you look at the renders, there was a flat spot there that would have allowed the foil to be a little more visible versus the versus on top of the embossing, which kind of plays with the light as it lands on it. The card back themselves are actually really intricate, and Jody did a beautiful design bringing the theme of royalty to the playing cards with this. You have those 2 like very common lions that you see when people are, for royal like crests and things like that. And then you have these 2 very fun like Harlequin jokers, which I thought were really cool. They're actually mirrored jokers, one with the red text and one with the black text. And then some really ornate ace of spades there. One of the cool things about this whole deck is that lion, that heraldry lion, runs throughout all of the cards as the back, and then all of the suits have this blue or red back design to it, depending on which suit it is. And then you can see all these fully custom drawn court cards. To me, they're almost a little bit reminiscent of what you would see in like Alice in Wonderland almost.
Yeah, I definitely see that, but they definitely scream royalty, that's for sure. But that Alice in Wonderland is spot
Yeah,
on.
it really has that interesting vibe to it. But Jody is an amazing designer. His style is very unique and it's very distinctly his. And this, while kind of different from some of his previous decks, it still stands out. You could tell this is a Jody Eklund deck. I really do like that kind of like tapestry kind of feel to that back design as well. There's an interesting pattern. It's not just a flat blue field. It's a really regal blue with some like, it really has like almost like a tapestry or a woven look to it, which is really cool.
Yeah, something you'd see on like a wall in some castle or something.
Exactly. I really do enjoy the vibe of the deck in general. The one thing that stood out to me for part of this as well, and there are a couple parts of it that didn't resonate as well. I think one of the biggest things was the tuck. The paper for the tuck is a new paper that we've been seeing from several designers who go through Gamblers, and it's almost a little bit like thinner than usual. You'll see there's the ad card here too, real quick, that talks about the different courts representing the different major powers back in the medieval times there. So Spain, England, France, and really goes through a lot of it. The one thing that I'll point out here that I'm talking that as one of the issues that I noticed with the deck, and this is probably a design oversight more than anything, the 2 5s actually have different fonts on them, and it's not even like it's
Hmm.
really like glaring there. There was also one other issue I noticed where the 10 of spades, the 10 itself is marginally smaller, but after I noticed that the 5 actually had 2 different fonts, I ran through the whole deck to take another look. The back design really, it fans and handles beautifully being a USPCC deck, and it really has a nice metallic ink to it. But like I said, this tuck box to me is a new stock that I think Gamblers has used for a couple decks that I've gotten my hands on, and I just don't personally like it. It feels flimsy. When you go to open the tuck flap, it seems to catch on itself and crinkle.
Yeah,
So it feels like there's kind of already like it's already diminishing. It's a little too thin or not rigid enough. I'm not sure. Maybe the paper's too soft, but something about this just it didn't hit as well as I wanted it to, especially for a deck that's built around the idea of royalty and luxury. The foil,
Right.
the foil is beautiful. They did a great job foiling the tuck, but I think the embossing wasn't as perfect as it could have been, especially with, as you can see, as you saw in the video, the name itself was hard to read because it was over the embossing instead of a recessed area. The other thing I noticed with it was that the foil was not perfectly lined up, and that may have just been because of the fact that it was basically a mirrored image on both sides of the tuck. So the one side of it was actually skewed off by almost a quarter inch towards one side. So it was off center there. Small things like that, especially on a deck that's, again, meant to exude luxury and royalty, stand out a lot more than you would on like a bicycle rider back.
Yeah, I think one of the things, like you said, was the fives, for instance. They have different fonts. Sometimes when these creators aren't picking up prototypes, when you get a prototype, you can kind of riffle through it and see if there's any size differences or stylized differences. But when you're getting like a poster or an uncut sheet that you have to go over, it's really hard to see kind of those small differences. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that when you are fanning it, it's definitely easily recognizable when they're so different.
Absolutely. And I think, again, it stood out to me almost immediately as well. It was really interesting because as I was going through the deck, I almost immediately noticed that the 5 just looked off. And it was more so in relation to the 4 next to it. And I was like, oh, that's really weird. The 4 is really ornate looking. The 5 looks standard and blocky. Let me go
Yeah.
see let me go check the other 5s and see if that's the case. And I waited to the end of the video to kind of run through and check it there. But that was one of the two things that I really noticed that stood out to me. Like I said, the other one was the size discrepancy in the 10. But I think all things considered, while this is a very beautiful deck, a few slight tweaks here and there probably would have made all the difference to put this from a good deck to a great deck.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for checking out this episode of Deckin' Around Deck Specs. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We drop these every Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday, giving you the freshest looks at the newest decks.
Peace.